Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Richard Litchfield of Eastside People, and welcome to the last session of the Festival of Trusteeship this week. It's one that I've been certainly waiting for, with a little bit of irreverence thrown in, and the session title is "How to Not Be a Prat on a Board." We do have a few housekeeping bits to go through, which you may well have heard a number of times already this week if you've been to some of our events. First up, the session is going to be recorded. Single session ticket holders will be sent links to the relevant session recordings, and weekly pass holders will be able to access all session recordings. Please stay muted on the call unless asked to unmute. Closed captions are available. You need to enable these. Please do use the chat to ask questions and share experiences. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll be feeding them back to Penny and the panel throughout the session. Please also, though, feel free to ignore the chat and just focus on the discussion if you'd prefer. Everything that happens in this session will be made publicly available in the recording, so just please be mindful of that. And if there are any legalities mentioned, which I don't think there will be in the How Not to Be a Prat session, these will be referring to charities just in the England and Wales. Thank you again, and Penny, over to yourself.
Thanks, Richard. So this is How Not to Be a Prat on a Board. It's kindly sponsored by Stone King. Thank you, Stone King. And we've got Hannah here from Stone King today on our panel. And I'm just going to tell you who I am. I am Chief Prat today. So I'm Director of the Festival of Trusteeship. I'm a trustee myself. All of my work is around supporting trustees, and I hope the fact that I've called myself Chief Prat shows to you that the framing of this session is that we all very much have an inner prat. We have an inner prat as humans. We certainly have an inner prat as trustees. And this low-level poor behaviour can really derail our efforts to be effective trustees. So we've got this lovely, brave panel who have volunteered their time to share their prattish behaviour, which is very generous of them. And also, we'd really welcome your own prattish confessions if you feel able to share. You can put them in the chat. Today, the chat is called the Prat Chat. You can put them in the chat. If you'd rather they were anonymous, please send them directly to Richard Litchfield, who will be collating some confessions. We'd love to come back to some and to share some later. So, panel, if we could start with some confessions, and perhaps you could please introduce yourselves as you go into this first question. So what is the low-level prattish behaviour that you're prone to as a trustee? And mine is talking too much. So, Ruth, let's come to you first. What's yours?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ruth. I'm currently a trustee on two boards. The UK's National Emergency Trust, and I can see at least one of my other trustees is here today, and the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. My low-level prattish behaviour, I think, is trying to impress people by saying things that maybe are not necessary. So not necessarily talking too much, but adding things that I think make me look impressive.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that's a really common one, actually. Freddie, let's hear from you. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your prattish behaviour.
Hi everyone, I'm Freddie. I'm a reformed fundraiser turned a fundraising recruiter. I'm now a trustee of a tiny little mental health charity, but we look after a lot of very unwell people and help them. My low-level pratty behaviour is definitely talking too much as well. I feel like I have to say something to every point, and I don't know anything about finance.
Actually, that's probably the one exception, isn't it? Where we should actually look for things to say about finance, because that's the one nobody wants to speak to. Yeah, I hear you, Freddie. I have a constant internal monologue. Oh, I've got something to say about that, and having to have a harsh word with myself. Hannah, what about you?
Hello, thank you, Penny. You've already introduced me as well. So I'm Hannah Kubie. I have been the trustee of two charities. I've ceased to be last year actually because we wound one up, which was an interesting experience. But I am now on the board of the Charity Law Association, which is non-charitable actually. And what are my sins doing that? One actually is probably being a bit too nice, which sounds a bit like I'm in a job interview and I'm trying to say one of those good bad things. But I chaired the charity who wound up last year, and sometimes actually being too accommodating can be a bit of a problem actually, especially if I do like to stick to time, so then you're accommodating and then you run out of time. And also it'd be disingenuous for me not to mention I sometimes can speed read things in a rush. Well, I've just done that, everyone else, just before coming to this meeting now. Yeah, sometimes I would never say I don't read papers, but that's not minor practitioners, that's a big problem. But sometimes I have a habit of not reading every word.
And when you say you're too nice, do you mean you're too nice to the people around you? And
oh
you
yes, sorry, I don't mean that I'm just lovely generally. I mean specifically, I think I really try and get everyone's voice it's a bit too much, and really think if people have a point on, let's really try and work through that point. And actually sometimes people can derail things if you're too accommodating.
Right, thank you. And Rashmi, what about you?
Thanks, Penny. So my name is Rashmi Rungta. I'm active on 3 boards, but I've been on 6 boards so far since 2018. My current 3 boards are University of Hull, Association of Chairs, and Myaware, which is a medical charity. And my practice behavior would be something similar to Hannah, where I've tried to, because I sometimes take on so many things at the same time. So it's been trying to speed read the documents, and then sometimes, ending up at the meetings and maybe something is being discussed and I don't know enough about it. And then I'm like, why didn't I read it up, in detail before that? So that's my practice behavior.
Thank you so much, all of you. You've all been already really, really honest with your practice behaviour, and I'm sure I definitely see myself in some of those. Thank you. Is there anything that you once did as a trustee which now makes you blush? And I'll fess up mine, which is that I was once a trustee of an organisation which had a lot of young volunteers. We were lucky enough to have 3 young trustees on the board, and they were just very, very quiet. And I didn't do anything about that. And I feel like that was terrible. Why did I do that? Rashmi, have you got anything that you think back on and that you kind of feel a bit of shame about?
Okay, I think I'll go back to Freddie's example where trying to speak on topics where I'm not well aware, like finance as well, actually. So yeah, it could sometimes backfire where you're not kind of raising the right point. Yeah, that's something that would make me blush, that I'm not raising it correctly.
Yes, and I guess that reads into not reading the papers as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But is it? And we had a conversation earlier in the week. I don't know if it was on the CEO session or another one, about how charity managers can always tell which trustees haven't read the papers. It is plain as day to us, and ploughing on and pretending that you have, or trying to wing it, is generally really obvious, isn't it? Freddie, what about you? Have you got anything that makes you blush?
Well, so my first sort of trusteeship was a board of governors when I was student union president, and I was very bullish for a 21-year-old, and I used to get very cross and very worked up, and most of it could have been a discussion instead of me being sort of militant student activist.
Interesting. It's such a balance, isn't it, as to when we should be just really, really nice and just let things go, and when we should speak up really vigorously. Ruth, what about you?
Yes, similar to Freddie, actually. In some of my earlier board roles, I was lucky to join roles that I thought were quite prestigious. And so I thought I should bring really rigorous challenge, and actually ended up upsetting someone unintentionally because I just didn't read the room right. I thought this was a super professional, brilliant member of staff, as opposed to a really tiny charity where maybe everyone was volunteering, and that this person would take the challenges as kind of peer-to-peer. So I think from that I learned, if you're going to robustly challenge, because we have to do that as trustees, you can do that privately in advance if you read the papers, obviously, in advance, and kind of then you can open up a really constructive conversation, as opposed to maybe letting someone come out of a meeting just feeling really upset with their performance when it was really about you, not them.
And again, we've had other comments and other sessions about how ambushes are never good in board meetings, are they? Ambushes on staff, if we have staff, ambushes on each other, never going to go down well. Hannah, what about you?
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think because you're held to a reasonable standard of account, but also required to bring your professional background to the table, I feel wouldn't be a big thing, but actually I sometimes think always have a paranoia I'm not doing well enough, I suppose, as a trustee. I think being a charity lawyer, and as all of you with charity backgrounds will feel, just an extra onus on you to just do a particularly good job. So that's probably the thing that makes me blush. In terms of something I probably should have done and I didn't do, the first board I was on, actually, we were getting too much information, actually, Rashmi, in our defence. I'm not reading it, but we were getting just far too much, and it wasn't being presented in the right way. And I didn't really speak out about things. Actually, I kind of went into a role and thought, oh, this is how this works, rather than thinking, hang on, hello, has anyone thought about this? Which I would do now.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because when we first joined boards, and it's interesting that you as a charity lawyer even had that. When we first
It was
joined
before
boards,
I was, actually,
oh,
but
it was
yeah,
before,
still
sorry.
some years ago. Yeah, no.
When we first joined, we don't know
yeah.
what the norms are. So there's things that we might be going, oh my goodness, what's going on here? But actually, we don't know whether we should call it out because we're not sure if that's normal. It's very difficult. So what do we think is some of the most common prat behaviour by trustees? So we're not just talking about our own sins now, we're talking about the general catalogue of pratishness. And thank you, because I can see that we've had some confessions in the chat, which is brilliant. Ruth, what do you think are the most common ones?
I did a little surveying actually of the chairs of the, of the boards that I'm on, and both of them said the same thing, that actually people just getting distracted and using their phones in a meeting is so disrespectful. You know, we've all got busy lives and we're volunteering, but just subtly checking your phone or your emails during a meeting, or worse, taking a call and just answering your phone in the middle of a meeting, is probably a really prattish behaviour that I don't think I've ever done myself, but I can see that that's just so disrespectful to everyone in the meeting.
Do you think there's sometimes different standards between how people might behave as trustees and how they might behave in their day jobs if they have a day job still? And I wonder if that's an example of that. What do you think, Ruth?
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps because they feel they're giving their time for free. And I think it's so easily resolved as well, like many of these challenges, by just setting some ground rules at the start. And if you have got a really vital call coming in from a hospital or, you know, someone you're caring for, of course you can say that at the start and say, I'm watching for this and I'm so sorry. And then it just doesn't feel rude in the same way or disruptive. So I think all of these things are resolvable, but perhaps we just don't think about them in advance enough.
Yeah, thank you. Rashmi, what are some of the most common prattish behaviours, do you think?
I mean, there are a lot of them, but I'll name two of them specifically. One is having side conversations while a discussion is going on. That's really distracting. And sometimes some trustees think they're too important for the board to be, able to have that. And also like I've been the only brown skin on a lot of boards. And I have been kind of underestimated a lot of times where I have made some remarks and they have been dismissed. In fact, at one time, I was on the board of a school, and I said we should, because it was a private school, boarding school. I said we should, hire more diverse staff, and I was told, "Oh, are you talking about discrimination?" And then thankfully someone stepped in and said, no, that's actually positive discrimination, because I kind of felt cornered at that time.
Yeah.
So I think these things should be avoided.
Definitely. And it's interesting what we can do as trustees if we see prattish behaviour, isn't it? And actually, it's prattish behaviour not to do anything. If we're witnessing something and we're just kind of going, oh my goodness, like what, this is awful, just let it stop. Actually, we need to do something as bystanders.
And this is something I would say it's an example of bad chairing, because the chair should step in and, kind of set these things right. But it didn't happen in my case. So that's why I think it's just an example of bad chairing.
Thank you. And if we have time, we might come on to the role of the chair in all this, in helping prevent prattish behaviour. And what do we do if they are the prat, which is even trickier. Hannah and Freddie, have you got any common pratty behaviour that you think we haven't mentioned yet? Freddie, we'll come to you first. You're off mute.
I think on the small charities, it's so often, if you've got a great board who are really engaged, we overpromise and underdeliver because we've got so much to do. So our chief exec is expecting us to do something and we just can't get to it.
Yeah, thank you. Hannah, what about you? Anything we've missed?
No, it's a variation actually of Rashmi and Ruth's one. It's just self-importance, but maybe that's just I hate it.